Now, just like this Ute, this introduction is going to be a little bit no frills because I wanted to emulate exactly what this Ute is offering. And I've tested a lot of the Isuzu D-Maxes that Isuzu has to offer, everything from the X-Terrain down to the middle of range LSU Plus. It's really everything you need in a Ute, but nothing more. So I wanted to just find out if this is worth buying, or do you really need those creature comforts to make life a little bit easier? And so by doing that, I'll walk you around the exterior features on this car, I'll jump on the inside, and of course take it for a drive both on and off-road to let you know what this workhorse and you can enjoy on the weekends as well is like to drive. Now with that out of the way, my name's Cameron, this is Product Review Cars. Let's get into it. So what do you get? Under the bonnet, we get the familiar 3-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel motor pushing 140 kilowatts and 450 Newton meters of torque, so you don't lose power by saving a bit of money. You've also got these headlights up front, which do feature a bit of an LED effect for the daytime and headlight there. That's quite good, and they're pretty bright actually, and there's some fog lamps down below, which are very useful in cold climates just like this one. And I do like the design up front. I like the matte finish to the grille up the front. I actually like it more than the chrome that you can get on some other D-Maxes. And there's plenty of ground clearance as well up front because there's no sports bumpers or anything like that. It really is just a simple front bumper design, but it does look good with this double fang effect. The D-Max actually comes with 17-inch alloy wheels, which look pretty nice. They have a little red circle around the Isuzu badge in the middle, just adds a little bit of premium flair. And there are drum brakes at the back and disc brakes at the front. Here, these tires, they are Dunlops and they are actually like a hybrid off-road tire, so it's pretty cool, and that's sort of pointing towards this Ute's actual purpose. Yes, it's a working Ute, but with everything sort of taken off, no side steps, no weird bumpers or anything like that, it's actually designed to be a bit of a fun off-roader without spending a stupid amount of money. So that's what I like about this car quite a lot. Like I mentioned, there's no side skirts here, and it actually leaves for quite a bit of ground clearance to clear any weird rocks, which we'll be testing in just a bit. At the back, I love the bumper design on the D-Maxes. It allows for an easy step up into the tray. And then we have a tow hitch here with the little connector to the side, sort of emphasizing the point that this thing can tow up to 3.5 tons. So I do like how you don't lose any practicality by going and saving a bit of coin by getting the LS-M model. Now this rear gate here, this is the latch for it. There is a little lock for it here, and this tonneau cover also has a lock up here. I sort of don't like how you have separate keys instead of just using the one actual key to start the car to unlock these. Maybe there's a reason for it, or maybe it's just because that's easier. Ultimately, I would have just preferred one key to open everything and start this car. And also you can see the reversing camera here. This thing opens with no dampening, so if you sort of drop it from there, it's gonna, bang around, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna fall off the car. It feels nice and sturdy, and it will support the weight of a person. That's good. I also like these little grooves in here as well, so you can put your coffee cup here, your Dare Ice coffee, or maybe 2-minute noodles. And this sort of looks like a Jeep Wrangler's face from the 40s, or a Willys Jeep to be more precise. So it's an interesting design there, but it is very useful that it's all textured to sort of prevent things sliding off it. Now this is a rolling tonneau cover. I like this more than the hard lid just because when you go to open it, you can drive like that and it locks in place, which is pretty good and very useful compared to the hard lid, which you have to close when you're driving, and it prevents the amount of vertical space you have when you're actually driving. So I like this because you get, sky's the limit when you have this rolling tonneau cover. In the back, you have plenty of space and plenty of carrying capacity as well. And I do like the tub line that comes in here. It feels nice and sturdy and tough. And of course, who doesn't love Isuzu stamped into the back there? It feels like a well-finished and, well-trimmed tray, which some don't. This one certainly does. And to close this tonneau cover, it's not as graceful. You grab this giant leash here and you sort of pull it back until it locks into place. And that's maybe your workout for the day. Now, a whole lot hasn't changed for this interior because of the base model. Really, we just get cloth seats, a smaller screen, and some more manual controls. There are auto wipers though, there are automatic headlights, and the only thing that's really missing is a push button start. So you can get your physical key out and you go ahead and pop that into the ignition barrel. Here it is, this is the key, very, very basic. Don't lose that, definitely buy a key ring. And just like any car, it starts up just normally. Now this smaller screen seems pretty, basic, but what I really like about it is that it has nice brightness, good contrast, and it's ultimately used just for mirroring Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. And you can do Apple CarPlay wirelessly too, which is pretty impressive, but I usually use a cord because wirelessly can take up a bit of your battery. So I do like having a wire here in the car. Talking about a wire, there is a USB port down below and there is an auxiliary cord and there is a little 12-volt socket, which is nice and practical. We do have these sort of hardy feeling climate controls below it. And I do like how you have hard buttons for the screen, despite this having limited controls, because there isn't like a navigation or anything like that. It's just for Bluetooth, radio, and phone mirroring, which is all you really need. I do like the storage points in here. You have one up top, you have one above the glove box, and of course one in the glove box, but there's a giant manual in here, which is sort of annoying. That takes up most of the bottom glove box. So thank goodness we have other places to lock and store smaller items. Steering wheel feels nice and tough, you know, just everything about this car feels like it can be abused and used and actually properly, you know, thrown around when you're maybe living on a farm or going off-roading or, you know, going to work where you don't really want to treat this thing too lightly, and this car definitely is fitted out just like that. And because there's no carpet as well, like there is none, that just means that, you know, you can sort of maybe hose this thing out or use like a damp cloth to wipe out any dirt, sand or anything like that, which is just so much more useful than other utes that might throw some carpeting around the cabin. Shifter's basic as well. You can change your own gears via there as well. It's in a non-sequential pattern, so up is up and then down is down a gear. There are also quick controls to control your rear diff locker, hill descent control, and also your parking sensors. Now the driver's display is also pretty basic. It tells you everything you need about your trip information, about your, you know, what the car's doing, all that sort of stuff. Really easy to read. Again, I do like how it's digital. It makes it feel like a little bit more futuristic than too basic, but what's nice and basic are the analog dials, which makes it super easy to read what your car's doing with its revs and also what it's doing with its speed. And of course we have a manual handbrake to go along all with this. Getting into the back of the D-MAX is no issue for an adult, but what you do have to be aware of is that if you have to look good for a client presentation, or, you know, you're going somewhere a bit formal, maybe you don't want to get mud on your pants, just be wary that mud does collect on the sills here, so if you rub your leg against there, you are going to get muddy legs. So that's just something small to keep an eye out for, but, you know, worth noting. Again, we have no carpet back here, and what I do like about D-MAXs, especially in the back seats, is that you can go ahead and unlock and then hook these seats up here to create more internal space if you don't want to truck stuff in the back of the ute, which is quite useful. And then there's a place to hide maybe some valuables underneath the seat. Although you have to be careful about putting small items in here because it's not trimmed in there. It's basically the bare metal of the car. So any, you know, coins or keys or anything like that might cause mysterious rattle and might cause you to go to the dealership and they might pull something out and go, hey, here's this $2 coin you forgot about a little while ago. So just be careful putting things under there that's too small, but it's nice and good for valuables, maybe like a camera or something. And that can be done for the other seat. So I like how it splits in a 60-40 fashion, so you can carry 3 people, maybe some extra groceries, or do the other and carry up to 4 people. Now, sitting in the back here, closing the door, I have an okay amount of knee room, although these are nice cushioned seats, so I don't really have a problem putting my knees into them and relaxing a bit more, which is quite nice. I actually have a decent amount of headroom as someone who's 5'11", and even people with taller torsos won't have an issue because the roof sort of comes up a bit more, and this is a nice tall roof, so it's quite nice. Also a nice big grab handle here as well, which is good, you know, to make sure you're not being thrown around the cabin. There's a little storage cubby here in the middle center console, but there is one USB, which is great, so people can charge at the back, as well as some little climate vents. So that's all quite nice. And I do have a window that goes all the way down here in the back. So I have a good view out. I don't feel all too claustrophobic. In the middle seat here, it's a different story for your feet because they don't really fit between the seat and the center console. If you have, you know, size 11 feet or maybe size 9 feet even, they won't really fit back here. So you have to play footsies with your outside passengers. So for 4 adults, very comfortable, and maybe for 3 kids in the back, that would be more appropriate. I also do like how there's a center armrest here with some cup holders. So it does make for a pretty good road trip vehicle. Driving for hours on end, I didn't feel uncomfortable at all while road tripping in this thing. I took this thing obviously out to the farm that we're at right now, and it was just so easy to just get on the road and hit the road for like 4 hours. Even better was the fuel economy. So I've averaged around 8.4 liters per 100 Ks in this tank, and I even got it to display a range of 1,140 kilometers of range to a single full tank, which was pretty impressive. So I didn't have to fill up once while being all the way out in Orange and then coming all the way back to Sydney. So that is really, really impressive, and something I haven't really tested on many Isuzu Utes is how far it would go on a single tank. This thing will go really quite far. Now for the suspension setup, we do have coils in the front, we have a leaf spring setup at the rear, and when that's unladen it can get a little bit bumpy in here, but for the most part it's been pretty smooth. It's just really dependent on what sort of road surfaces you're hitting and how much you have in the car. When you're pretty light on, you hit some bumpy road, that's when you're going to notice this thing gets quite bumpy, but when you're out on smoother roads like this, then it's not going to be a real problem. Now, steering feel in the LS-M is not so great. It's a little vague, but it's not the worst either. It's really easy to just sort of hold onto the steering wheel and get going. I like the telescopic adjustment as well, so you can get nice and comfortable and don't just sit so close to the front dash. Something that's sort of I've noticed here is that you can't really block out this sun with this side sun visor so much because it doesn't pull back, so you have to probably sit close to the dash just to block out that sun a little bit. Now the D-MAX through corners on tarmac is actually quite good. It's really good at staying nice and flat without feeling like, you know, physics is completely against your best interest. So going through corners here, for example, we're setting up, it's not too high speed, but they're nice tight hairpins, and just going through, the D-MAX is nice and flat, which gives me confidence to put lots of things in the rear because you've got a nice stable base to be able to load this thing up in the tray. So driving around with nothing in the back of it is quite comfortable. And look, this thing is very truck-like when it comes to how the engine responds as well. This is quite a utilitarian engine. It's not really like a car-like diesel. What I find is that it's really just going through the revs just to give you power. There's nothing here that I go, oh yeah, I want to hear more revs, or there's nothing really I want to dig my foot down deeper and really hear what this thing's got. It's really just quite an engine that gets the job done, and that's, you know, what a lot of users here will appreciate, because, you know, whether you're towing, whether you're going on a road trip, this thing will be in the lowest RPMs for when you want it to be quiet, and then it will deliver all of its power where optimal in the rev range when you want to get going. And it's not a really quick truck, but it doesn't feel all that slow. So it's 0 to 100 time we tested around 10 seconds. So yeah, that's quite slow by modern standards, but it's not something that feels too sluggish thanks to that big turbocharger. And as for the safety features that we have here, we have forward collision warning, which comes in handy when you're in bumper to bumper long weekend traffic and everything starts slowing up. You might not be paying attention, avoids any sort of rear enders like that. And then in addition, you do have radar cruise control, which I really appreciate, and you also have blind spot monitoring. But something I'm not a big fan of is how much the center screen dims when the automatic lights go on. It just is quite aggressive, and I just think it's something that, yes, just maybe turn off auto dimming if that's something that annoys you, because it's just, you know, a little bizarre how dark it actually gets. So I'm back here at the familiar proving grounds that I take our off-road vehicles on, and I jumped at the opportunity to get this D-MAX because it was offered to me as the off-road spec D-MAX LS-M, and I thought this is quite appealing because this appeals to people like me who probably don't have the funds to go and spend a whole lot on a fancier version of the D-MAX, which has like leather seats, heated seats, bigger screens, all that sort of stuff, or maybe looks as cool as the X-Terrain model, which is the top of the range one. And maybe I just want the basic abilities of the D-MAX, you know, with whatever comes with it. And that's what this truck is. It's the dual cab with the basic necessities, but what's cool with this is that we got those off-road tires, and we also have a bit more clearance around everywhere because there's no side steps along the sides. So this, in theory, should be one of the more capable D-MAXs in the range if all you want to do is drive out of the showroom and onto a dirt road like this. So with that out of the way, let's just get into it. And I definitely note that you do have to use two-wheel drive, or 2 high as indicated here. There's a couple of controls here. You go 2 high, 4 low. You definitely have to use 2 high when you're out on a dry road, because if you're in 4 high and try and make a tight turn, those wheels just don't like that sort of tight maneuverability. So that is a bit of a downside, that you can't drive in all-wheel drive sort of like all the time, and you have to be in 2-wheel drive if you're making sharp turns and driving in a car park, for example. But where 4 high comes an advantage is here, and obviously on slippery surfaces. So immediately we're just going to start descending, and I'll start by using hill descent control here, and away we go. So, the D-MAXs always make a funny noise on initial bite when it comes to the hill descent control, but they do a really good job of modulating the speed at a consistent rate down these sorts of hills. And what I love about this car is that it really feels quite capable. Like, there you go, there's that weird sound again. It just feels like something I can throw at this track and I don't have to worry about it. It's one of my favorite vehicles to bring along here because I'm never having to worry about clearance, or I'm never going to worry about capability. The D-MAX seems to offer quite a lot of ability when it comes to taking this thing off-road. Yes, you definitely feel a lot of the road though because of the way this is a traditional ute, and yes, it's a workhorse during the day, hence the drum brakes and leaf spring suspension. I did make a note on an Instagram reel ages ago. I got completely roasted for not, going into further clarification. I said I like drum brakes, but I said I don't like drum brakes and I don't like leaf spring suspension for off-road driving, and apparently that was completely wrong. But what is correct is that yes, you will have better articulation with your wheels if you have multi-link rear suspension, and you won't have any issues to save any debris getting inside those drum brakes. But for this ute, I don't have any complaints, and I don't really want to say I want, disc brakes or multi-link suspension, because this is doing a good enough job as is, and this is meant to be the entry-level ute into the D-MAX range, so, you're not meant to want anything too fancy, and also you don't want to compromise any of the practical elements this ute has when it comes to carrying capacities and towing capacities, because that's what the D-MAX is all about. Now, going through these ruts here, ground clearance isn't an issue. It's a bit of a deep rut, and I've definitely bottomed out on some overlanding cars like Subarus. There, D-MAX, not an issue. Now, after all that, it boils down to one question. Should you buy one of these? And if you're looking for a dual cab ute that pretty much just has everything you need, get one of these. This is so practical as a daily driver, a work ute, and something that off-roads. This is a great all-rounder in that regard. If you want more creature comforts, then yeah, sure, you can go up the range. But if you want to make your money work the most for you, then buying one of these utes would make the most sense. There's nothing here that I really need unless it's heated seats in a climate like this, but that's really, again, a creature comfort. This thing warms up pretty nicely. So the ultimate question is, yes, you should buy one of these, and it is a great all-rounder and something that, just makes the most sense in the range. But if you want something a bit nicer, then yeah, sure, spend a bit more money.